You're listening to Honey, We Made a Disney Podcast. Two friends since before watching the Apple keynote was cool. Not that it's that cool now either. Now dads reliving the Disney movies we grew up on with our own kids. I'm JB Waggoner.
And I'm Eddie Ferguson. And on today's episode, some kids just don't know when to stop pretending as we review the Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. But first, JB, how are you and the family doing?
Doing good. We just celebrated a new milestone for my daughter. So had a fun little party for her and some friends. Still battling through all the life stage stuff with her as we always do. But we had a big revelation with her. You always wonder with each of your kids, hey, what is the thing that makes them tick? What is the thing that they love more than anything? So my son, he's weirdly kind of very much a rule kid, where it's like, if we've set a rule, he's going to follow through on it. Or like firstborn, of course, firstborn syndrome. Not that I would know anything about that. But so like we've even told, like my wife told his new teacher, hey, just let you know, like, as he's starting soon, hey, something to know about him is if you create a rule in your classroom, be prepared to keep that rule for the entire year because he will hold you to it. But my daughter, we've been wondering, okay, what is it for her? She's getting a little bit older, so she's getting out of the baby stuff, out of the toddler age. And we're like, what makes her tick? Like, what is that thing that just like kind of drives her forward and makes her do the things that she does? And my wife finally nailed it. She figured out what it is. And maybe it's just the age she's in, but we think it's a little bit more than this. And she has a lot of FOMO. She's constantly afraid of missing out on what's going on. She hates it when I take my son to the movie theater. If I do any of that kind of stuff without her, she gets instantly very, very upset, wants to go with us. And of course, it goes into all of the potty training stuff we're doing, which is that she doesn't want to stop playing and having fun. She doesn't want to suddenly have to pause things to go potty and come back. And it was weird. It was like, we don't know really what to do with it yet. We're trying to still figure that part out. But we're like, oh, this makes so much sense of why you're doing the things that you're doing. So it's a little bit more of a serious. No, it's not quite as silly as we try to do on here, but just kind of felt like we came away with it was one of those aha, like as parents, we figured out something about our children. This is amazing. Now we got to figure out how to strategize to use it effectively and not manipulatively. But
the birth order stuff is so spot on. It's so crazy. But yeah, and also like, yeah, each kid just kind of has their own little way of making it tick. The portable potty is the game changer. You just buy a couple of cheap portable potties and you have them everywhere. So then that way they don't miss out. It's just like, well, there's a potty right here. You don't even have to leave the room. Boom, there you go.
Porta potty.
Yeah. I mean, we just bought like this super duper molded plastic ones. And that was like, yes. Some things in parenting, you realize like, this is worth every penny. It doesn't matter. Like, I remember when we found blackout curtains, it was like, yes, this is.
Buy them and forget them.
This is, you know, I remember Sarah mentioning, well, we could try. And I just was like, yes, we will find room in the budget. Go do this now. Like, I need to sleep. I need to get all the way through the night. So yeah, there's just certain things. Once you find them, these little nuggets, then you go, okay, this is hope. This is light at the end of the tunnel.
Nuggets in all of its forms is basically what rearing children are. All the versions of nuggets. But enough about me. We've got your weekly Disney news and movies, streaming and shows to talk about. And we had a big week with Disney's quarterly earnings call with Bob Iger happened. And we've got a lot of things to talk about under here. One of the big ones that I know for me, it's a big deal, not as much for you, Eddie, being the sports guy that you are. but ESPN has for a long time danced around or away from sports betting. And for a long time, they wouldn't even touch it, wouldn't come near it. Fox Sports, on the other hand, they launched their own betting app like almost immediately after it became everybody
launched their own betting app before. Yeah.
But over the years, ESPN has started kind of like getting closer and closer into that community. They've started having, I remember it was a big deal when the NFL had official sponsors from sports betting, from DraftKings or any one of those that happened. It kind of like blew up like, oh, wow, they're jumping into this. Well, now reports are coming out that they are actually going to start their own betting app. Like you said, a little delayed. Everyone else already has one out there. So now they're going to go full force. And for me, I don't know about you, Eddie, but this makes a ton of sense for a company that's struggling to find money, to find income of any ways. And this is a different route for them, of far different than we would have said even 3 years ago, 5 years ago for that.
Yeah, it gives us a hint at what they are thinking about doing. I think with the entire ESPN brand, they are partnering with Penn Entertainment, which is an already well-established gambling establishment. And so it's kind of a smart move on their part, where you partner with somebody who already has some of the infrastructure in place to do all of those things, and Disney is more or less just they're licensing the brand. They maintain ownership, of course, but it is more or less somewhat of a licensing agreement and all of that. And I think that gives you a glimpse at what they are thinking about with some of these moves going forward. Is they want to maintain some ownership, maybe even majority ownership, but they want to leverage other strategic partners who can kind of do the dirty work, and they can just walk away with the bag of money, which is what you see here with partnering with Penn Entertainment and creating this new ESPN betting app. What do you think it's going to be called? I mean, it's not going to be like ESPN Bet.
I mean, the simple answer is usually the right answer. Was that Occam's razor? It's like, it's probably going to be called that, ESPN Bet. That's my bet. If I had a bet on this, I don't think that any sportsbooks are taking that bet right now, but I'd imagine it's probably not going to be anything fancy or anything like that. But Eddie, I know that, so some of what we've been wondering is all of the assets and all of the streaming channels and regular broadcast channels and stuff. We've been wondering, where does ESPN fit in the future of Disney? And especially since it's kind of been maybe a loss leader. I don't know how you would clarify it, but does this make it more likely that Disney holds on to ESPN, or less likely? Do you think this might be on the way out, or is this like a way to hedge its bets?
I think they are not going to let go of a majority stake of ESPN, or at least some significant stake in ESPN. What's interesting is ESPN used to just be the cash cow. Like Disney's cash cow was the parks and ESPN, and still are the parks to a certain degree, even though that's starting to slip a little bit. And ESPN, this last quarter call, pretty much what they were saying was, we love ESPN, a lot of like loyalty there, but they're killing us. Like the cord cutting is happening faster than ever, and ad revenue is going down faster than ever. I think that was one of the kind of things hidden deep in there inside the earnings call, is how quickly advertising dollars are going down. And that's not just ESPN, that's across the board in all media.
Yep.
As how people consume content is in an upheaval right now, and you don't know really where the eyeballs are, advertisers are taking advantage of this and saying, we're not going to pay, premium prices for all of this anymore, because we don't know really what eyeballs are going to see all this. It's all happening too fast and too quickly. And so the earnings call really revealed that ESPN is bleeding in both directions, from cable subscriptions and from advertising dollars. So I think what this gives us is this is the type of deals Disney wants to do with ESPN going forward is let's partner with somebody who can give us high, low risk, high return is pretty much what they're looking at there. And it's the worst kept secret that Disney is in open conversations with the three major leagues. That's the NBA, the MLB, and the NFL. And so the discussion there is what if Disney sells a percentage of ESPN to one of or multiple of those leagues? And then
Wow.
now these leagues have an invested interest in ESPN and wanting to see its success. So what that could do is pull down these top dollar deals they're getting with Amazon, Apple, Google, and get some of these premium sporting nights, or all of these things a little bit better than me.
Like the Super Bowl and stuff. Is that what you're talking about?
No, I'm talking like Monday Night Football
Oh,
or
okay.
Thursday Night Football. These type of like um, keystone events.
Well, they currently do
that
have Monday Night Football. They do have Monday Night Football
okay.
currently.
But I mean, some of these other ones have kind of gone big, from the All-Star game to this or that. Those are now being sold off by the leagues at a
Thursday Night
premium
Football.
price.
Thursday Night Football now is owned by Amazon Prime. You're right. Yeah.
So I think that's what Disney's thinking is if we can get them to have an invested interest, it will hopefully increase their willingness to use a sports pun to play ball or play nicely with them.
Well, and the thing that ESPN has going for it, obviously, is there's only so many places that have live sports, like the major sports, and they still have it. They still have the NBA. They still have NFL. So when you have and Major League Baseball to some extent as well, when you have that and there's such a low amount of opportunity, especially football, like 16 games, 15, 16 Monday Night Footballs, plus a playoff game, that's still a valuable piece of real estate, and they just got to figure out how to turn this thing around. So yeah, it seems like they're going to be holding on to it, and this ESPN bet, if that's what they call it, is I think it's a shot in the arm for them in the right direction financially.
They just need some cash. They just need some cash, and that's what you're seeing them do. Even in the earnings call, is just kind of go, where's everything at? Just kind of it's like playing Jenga. The whole earnings call, you just felt like Bob Iger was playing Jenga. Like, let me just push on the little bricks and see which one is loose and wiggles. And what's crazy is the numbers he's giving are very dire. It's just like, ooh, you guys are hurting and you're hurting bad. But he's selling as like, it's very rosy and colorful and like, this is actually going
that's his
great.
Job.
And
that's his
job, right? But I think what's hard is like the stock market reflected it, is nobody felt like then they could trust any of it. And it put Disney even on shakier ground. So when your numbers aren't looking good and you're not sure what the top dogs are really thinking about all of that, then the stock market goes, ooh, I don't know. And the stock dropped. It dropped quite a bit the day after the earnings call and all of that. So it'll be interesting to see. I think we'll see some strategic partnerships with ESPN. I think that is where they're going to hold on. They, for whatever reason, see that as very core and central to the overall Disney brand. I think where ESPN goes in the streaming will start to determine how all streaming starts to shake down. And I think the name of the game is going to be partnerships, deals, bundles. You're going to go back to cable level prices, but you're going to get these strategic bundles and you're going to get on-demand content. I don't know about you, so let me run this by you. The thing that I have heard from more and more sports fans that they have said to me, like friends and family, have said, if ESPN's streaming ESPN Plus, right? ESPN Plus had more like vintage content available, and even not just sports, which that's the benefit of ESPN is they have a huge back catalog. So if you want to like go relive the glory days and watch a Bulls game from the 90s, ESPN's got that. And I could see how that's a legit thing. Like you're sitting around with a group of buddies. There's like no live sports that you really want to watch. It's like, hey, yeah, let's watch when Jordan. Oh yeah, I think that's a really cool thing that they could offer to the table, including even like old sports centers. Like let those be on demand where you can like go back and pull back highlights from a particular day in time. And then I think the other thing that I hear more and more from people is ESPN just needs to be ESPN, needs to be about sports, needs to be about athletes. That so much of ESPN has drifted in recent years and has become about so many other things. And people are like, no, sports is my thing to go relaxed. I want to like not have to think about all of the other things in the world. I don't need ESPN to be some type of news show or social commentary on top of the sports. I just need Sports Center to be Sports Center. Um, so that's my 2 cents in the whole thing. I think if you throw all of that together in a soup, put it back out, and make an ESPN Plus in that, I think they could make a ton of money off of this.
I agree. So Hulu came up in the recent earnings call. Do you want to walk us through how big of a player they are with Hulu and what they're thinking about doing as it pertains to the future of Hulu as it's part of Disney?
Yeah, so if you think back to, man, this was back in the early days of streaming. I want to say like 2011, 2012. I can't remember correctly. You may have to look that up for me when Hulu actually launched. It was launched primarily by 3 major TV groups. You had ABC, you had Fox, and you had NBC. So the idea was let's go in together, let's create our own streaming service. We can all pour our content in together and it'll be great. CBS didn't want to be a part of it because they were, I don't know if they still are, the number one broadcast channel. So they felt like they could just take their toys and go play by themselves. So these 3 got together and said, let's create. When Disney bought Fox, they got their third of the business. So after that Fox acquisition, they gained 2/3 majority stake in Hulu, and also signed an agreement in 2019 with NBC Universal that they would buy off of NBC their stake in the company in 2024, sometime in the calendar year of 2024. So they could do that as early as January if they would like to, at a market value of at least $5.8 billion.
Whoa.
So that around that number, that was the 2019 number. NBC, when they actually sit down to ink the deal and put it all together of actually purchasing it, NBC is going to try and inflate that market value as much as possible. Disney is going to try and deflate it as much as possible. So I think Disney is in the boat of going, we need to get as much money on hand as possible. And the 5.8 that I mentioned here and the article that I pulled it out of is on the low scale of all of this. I've heard a number as high as 11 needed.
Yeah, I was reading 9.
That.
Man.
Yeah. So it's market value. So it'll all be interesting to see what all of that takes. So that is what Disney's working towards right now. That's the short-term game in all reality, because 2024 is coming right around the corner for us. And Disney wants that because I think once they get Hulu, their goal there is to then create some type of kind of mega streaming service.
So Eddie, tell me, what is the reason that they would hold on to Hulu when they've got their own channel, they've got Disney Plus? Why hold on to Hulu? What is the value that brings them that, because they're not like, that's not their own content. It is other people's content. It's not like when they got Fox itself, like they have all that stuff, they could put all of that content on Disney Plus, and a lot of it they put over on Hulu. That's kind of like more their adult section, almost to some degree. Why hold on to Hulu?
It creates demand. And so when you control demand, you can control what you charge for it and what people are willing to purchase for it. It goes back to the old Disney Vault days. Let's lock away this movie for 15 years and then come out and be like, it's released a limited time, and people go and get it. So you're decreasing what is the word? I can't think of it.
Access.
Access. Thank you. You're decreasing access to it, which increases demand and gives you higher profit. So what they want to do is the Disney core, which is your Disney family friendly, we can all come together, cuddle up on the couch and watch this together, is Disney Plus. Anything that is, I mean, and you go back to the 80s, and even as we've walked through this journey of watching all of these movies, we intentionally pulled out all of the touch-tone movies. Splash was the very first one, if you remember, back in the 80s with Tom Hanks. Even something like Who Framed Roger Rabbit was a really big one for all of them. Armageddon is a Disney movie, right? Disney's always tried to have a little side thing where like, well, let's make movies that aren't really the Disney brand. Let's make content that's not really the Disney brand, but we don't want to lose that audience. We want to make money off of them. So that's what Hulu's going to be. Hulu is always going to be your FX. The Bear is a great show, but not a lot. Most families aren't going to sit down and watch that together, but they want to make the money off of that. Only Murders in the Building, right? You're not going to see that on Disney Plus, but they want to make the money off of a show like that. And so having two separate brands, and it just increases what they can make money off of, right? Why sell one thing when you can sell two? And then it becomes even more attractive with the bundle, right? It looks like an even greater deal. Well, you can get Disney Plus, you can get Hulu. Oh, and $5 more a month, we can throw in ESPN Plus, and we can kind of increase all of these things. And this gets to the second thing. Oh, sorry, go for it.
And speaking of bundle, now they can raise the prices on the bundle, which they've done across the board. So break that down. What are all the increases we're going to see here? That's going to be hitting our monthly payments here, and we're going to have to adjust our budgets for them, and some of them fairly significantly.
Yes. So as of October 12th, so you've got a few weeks here to budget accordingly. A Disney Plus Premium, that's with no ads, will jump 27%. Okay,
wow.
Rising from $10.99 a month to $13.99 a month.
Ooh.
It's a significant jump. And you got to remember, just 3 years ago, this was announced. This was 2019. They announced this at what? $6.99 a month?
Yeah, that sounds about right. It's doubled.
I paid $3.99 a month for the first 3 years.
Oh yeah, because you had that crazy good deal.
Crazy early adopter deal. So you think about that, a $10 increase for me for all of that. That is if you want without ads. Hulu without ads will increase 20% from $14.99 to $17.99 a month. And the price for the Disney Plus standalone ad-supported tiers will remain the same each month. That's key. That is
the bundle.
That's the whole kit and caboodle there, folks. No.
Oh, no, sorry.
The ad-supported tiers remain the same. So what are they trying to do? They're not making money off of your $13.99 subscription. There's no way that they're making that much money off of you for $13.99. They want to push the consumer to the ad-supported tiers because that's where they make the money. There's a famous saying, know history because it is sure to repeat itself. If you remember back in the 70s and 80s, I know we were not born at the advent of cable, but we've all watched these documentaries. When cable first came out, cable was just subscription based. There was no ads on cable. And this was the big attraction of cable. You pay this flat fee, you can just watch your content, there's no ads. Well, everybody quickly realized with cable, ooh, yeah, it's kind of nice to have this flow of subscription coming in, but that's not really where the money is. The money is in the ads. And so cable quickly became ad driven. This is the exact same thing that's happening in the streaming wars. Subscription dollars, those fees aren't where you make the money. It's where you get people in the door, but it's not where you make the money. It's with ads. So you're going to see this bifurcation happening more and more. We're going to keep the ad tier as low as we possibly can, and then that non-ad tier high to push you down to the ad tier because that's where we really make the money. Then in comes things like bundles, right? Ooh, well, if you throw this together and that that ad tier bundle will always be a sweet, sweet deal. I promise you, Disney will keep that a sweet, sweet deal because they want to make money off of you with the advertising on all three of those categories.
I need to go check now and see what my bundle is gonna go to because we have the ESPN Plus, Hulu, and Disney Plus one. So now I'm interested. What is ours going to get? Is it going to get closer to $20? I think we do the Hulu with ads, but we do Disney Plus without it because we got kids, and that is nice to not have to worry about any ads popping up because they're these streaming services are so terrible at putting not like kid content, like non-kid friendly ads, just straight up. Yes. Roku is the worst, by the way. We have a Roku TV. They put like all the spooky movies that are coming out like right up there on the homepage. They're horrible about it. I don't need to go on that soapbox right now. But man, like,
and I think they do that on purpose. Honestly, I don't think it's an accident. I think it's on purpose because they know parents don't want that. And so, okay, we'll just pay for it so we don't have to expose our kids to that, which to me is just evil.
Evil, but financially lucrative for all of these people.
For them.
Yeah. So last little bit of news, another lawsuit.
This just dropped. Ooh, this is just
I didn't even know about this. Yeah, go for it.
Hours old. So TSG Entertainment, we all remember them as the guy shooting the arrow through axe heads at the beginning of a movie. You know that logo?
Yep.
They're a big Hollywood financier. Like they just pony up the cash. They're like a VC, but for Hollywood. They are suing Disney for a breach of contract. The suit filed today in LA Superior Court alleges that Disney and its studio 20th Century Fox committed a number of transgressions, including withholding profits and cutting deals to boost its streaming platforms and stock prices. This is specifically related to Avatar: The Way of Water.
Whoa.
They ponied up a huge amount of cash to finance that. The deal, I think, was crafted under 20th Century Fox, maybe before the acquisition. I don't know. And another article that I read said Disney did every Hollywood accounting trick in the book to keep as much money as possible from flowing over to TSG Entertainment. So they are being sued.
Wow. I would love to know what those accounting things are that they did. I know some of the chicanery that can happen from my own experience, but did they say anything about what those exactly are? That's just where my mind goes immediately. Like, oh, we had to pay for assistance and we had to pay for market, all these other things.
Yeah, I did not see any specifics come out of all of it, but it.
But you're right. I've seen TSG's logo in front of a lot of films, and to know that they're a big financer, and that means that they're a big player as well. To tick off a company like that, that's pretty gutsy from Disney to do something like that if these allegations are in fact true. But it kind of just speaks to the nature of what all of these people who've had streaming platforms are doing, which is to hide the numbers. That's what part of this whole WGA and SAG streaming issues are right now, is they want to be paid when a movie does well on streaming, but that would mean that all these streamers would have to actually reveal what exactly the numbers are, and none of them. This is like a sacred pact that none of them want to give up this. No one wants to be the first one to actually put those numbers out there, even though there are other companies that are like Parrot, I believe, is one of them that is out there accumulating this similar to what, and they're doing probably similar things to what Nielsen has done for decades and decades, maybe 100 years now, kind of creating their own rating system of like how popular these are. But yeah, they don't want to give that up.
Yeah.
And this is just another sign of that. They really don't want to give up money because they don't want to tell what is actually happening, and they want to actually protect those streaming platforms.
Yeah, it was the lawsuit is it's not good PR, and Disney keeps losing the PR thing, right? And this is what was interesting even about the earnings call, just to pop back up to that. Disney didn't mention anything about the Florida lawsuits that are ongoing, even though some new things kind of came out today about that, where the governor of Florida is trying to, it looks like maybe backpedal a bit. They painted that really rosy. They didn't mention anything about the Mayor and Skaggs duo coming into duo coming in to be a consultant, specifically consulting on ESPN. And this just throwing in another lawsuit, and this one being a Hollywood, like inside baseball lawsuit. On top of all this, Bob Iger made himself the piñata for the strikers, right? Like they now, like everybody is chanting against him for his comments that he made at the Billionaires Summer Camp. So it just can't be those PR chats, the comms team getting together on, Wednesday morning. That can't be fun. That's got to be tense.
A little bit.
Put it lightly.
One of my favorite.
They're probably wishing for the Chapek gaff days by now.
I mean, did you see this coming? No, last November when we were like, "Oh, Iger's coming back in, Chapek's out." Maybe some of the foolishness isn't quite as prominent as in some of the gaffes where he was like ticking off some of the hardcore fans are. He's done a better job with that.
Yeah.
But he's kind of let himself go on some of the bigger things, like especially with the writers and the actors.
Well, I think what is coming out, like these are the problems facing are actually ones he created a long time ago. With these mergers and acquisitions at a big hefty price tag, and they just kept getting bigger and bigger and not paying off as much. Like Pixar was great, awesome. Yep, that makes a lot of sense, and it starts paying off for itself. Marvel, steal of a deal, in all honesty. And at first people were like, I don't know if I understand this. And then boom, it paid off. Like it was the golden goose for a while. Lucasfilm, they got what, like 2 really strong films out of that? I don't know if that really was what they wanted it to be. And we need to circle back to that because I have a little proposition to throw out at you. And then, yeah, Fox just felt like such an overreach and way too much. And now the company is they're over their eyeballs in debt. They have to purchase the rest of Hulu, and they got to pony up the cash for that really soon. And, they delayed investment in so many other things that's starting to chip away at other parts of the business that they thought were guaranteed income. These were all things created by Iger. None of this was Chapek.
And what's interesting now is one other little nugget from the earnings call is that he said that he's looking to improve the quality of the studio films as well as reduce the number of release titles and cost per title. So he's like, what we're going to do? We're going to double down on quality to make more films you really, really like instead of pushing out so much stuff. but there's going to be less, and we're also going to spend less. The spend less part, I'm like, what? How are you going to spend less and make a better films? Although granted, they spend so much on some of these and they aren't great films. According to my friend Sarah, who I work with, they just need to double down on story. Let's double down on telling actually good stories, which isn't as expensive as you might think.
She is absolutely
shout
correct.
out Sarah Mack.
I think the budget for Ahsoka pre-marketing $158 million, and that's just a TV series.
For a TV series, man.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure Oppenheimer was just 100.
I don't remember, but that sounds fairly true. That's how much the Mario movie was. It was like 100 million.
So you think about it. So Mario was 100 million. But Pixar can't make a movie for under $250 million.
Yep.
All of these live action Disney remakes are coming in at 250, 300. Marvel movies are up, all of that. Like, these things are inflated. So I think, yes, this is exactly what you need to do. And I need to send this to you. The Nolan deal that he got. So I don't know if you remember this. Nolan got so ticked at Warner Brothers for their whole thing during the pandemic, where they were releasing movies simultaneously on streaming.
Yeah.
And he said, fine, he had done a good, half a dozen films with Warner Brothers up to that point. That's why Oppenheimer was released under NBC Universal. And they came to him and they said, whatever you want, we'll give it to you. We want a Nolan film. And he said, I think he put it at 120-day theater window, and no other Universal release for 2 or 3 weeks before and 2 to 3 weeks after. He wanted a spot. And there was a couple other things that he put in there that are like, whoa, you walked away with that. That's pretty sweet. But I think what he constructed with that is you get these great quality films and they get some time to breathe, right? Like the Barbenheimer thing, it's still going. They're going to spend a long time thinking that one through. I hope they learn the lesson there and go, it's about good story. It's about compelling story that people actually want to see.
And compelling brands like Barbie.
Yeah, I'll give it to you. And the destruction of the world through nuclear weapons. Those are solid brands. But I think the other piece in it is let the creatives be the creatives. So many of Disney movies as of late have been more, they pre-package these things. Like most Marvel films, the director gets told, these are your action pieces. Here's these, this is how they're going to do it.
There's very few James Gunn. The very few James Gunns who can really make it their own thing. Yeah, most of them I don't even know the directors of most of them. So
right. And I hope that's what this starts to shake down to. They need to cancel some of these ones that are in the pipeline. Come on, just cancel all the live action ones. Just forget about live action remakes for a little while. Just Batgirl those things.
Cancel Snow White.
Yeah. And I'm not even saying that for all of the other reasons, sure, but just at the end of the day, let's just be done with that era. Don't ruin your original. You've ruined so many of the other good classic ones. Don't ruin the one that started it all. This is you wouldn't have Disney Studios if it wasn't for Snow White. This is what, don't do it. Don't go in there and remake all of this. So I don't know. I said I was going to circle back to something. Can we just play a little what if for a bit? So Disney is showing all signals with ESPN that they want to do partnerships with other people, maybe sell off a piece of the ownership in order to gain some of that partnership. This started me down a rabbit trail as I'm, driving around, or actually I was working on my son's birthday decorations and just kind of mindlessly painting and paper macheing and all of these crazy things that you do for your children. And I thought, what if Disney were to do what they're thinking of doing with ESPN with another brand? Let's say Lucasfilm, right? It's struggling. They can't seem to make a profit off of all of it. But who? Who? And again, this is just daydreaming. There's no way that any of this is happening. But I had this thought of like,
to us, Eddie. They're
how
going to sell it
crazy
to us.
I know. No, someone even better. What if they sell it a portion back to George himself?
I'm pretty sure there's a change.org campaign out there somewhere to have them sell it back to George.
And like, let's just give George, let's just say it's 50-50. Somebody's got to be the majority, so, they can coin toss it. I so wish George would come in and just we just did a Star Wars themed birthday party for my son. So this is why like all things Star Wars have just been like circling around us for like a solid week. And I just made a cardboard paper mache Millennium Falcon for my son. As I'm making this and I'm thinking through all of this, I'm going, how cool would it be if George comes in and George is known for this. He just reaches right back and changes it, right? Like he just doesn't care. He makes it what he wants it to do. Let's just forget those 3 films happen. You can keep Solo. You can keep Rogue One. I think he would be kind of
Would
okay
he?
with
Would he keep that? That's what I'm afraid of, though. The good things that we got. Is he going to completely take away the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda?
I don't think so, because his Padawan, Dave Filoni, made those. So I don't think he touches Dave Filoni's stuff, but I definitely think he goes back and touches those 3 films, because he gave Disney, he had write-ups for those 3 films. He had the ideas. He had the top sheets for all of those.
And you want to know where they put them? They put them immediately in the trash.
They didn't want anything to do with all of that. So that's where I say, George, come back, make the Star Wars, finish the saga that is actually, this Anakin Skywalker saga. Let's not just like create new characters and act like, oh, they're actually Skywalkers.
Palpatine. It's all Palpatine.
Somehow Palpatine came back. No, like you have to like that. These are my daydreams, and I've spent way too much time on them already.
It's a pretty remarkable American turnaround story for somebody to become a hero, then to be instantly vilified and people declaring his death and so excited that he was no longer going to tamper with the sacred Star Wars universe, to only a decade later people be clamoring for his return. Less than a decade later, because that was 2016 when they sold, or 2012, 2013, somewhere on there. So yeah, about a decade later, be clamoring for his return with like open arms. Please, George, save us. You're our only hope. Like, that's a turnaround story. That's an American, like, rags to riches to rags to riches story. They should make a film about this.
Maybe they will one day. Maybe
we should make that film.
What still bothers me is, in a recent interview, somebody asked George Lucas what he is doing. And he said, I am making movies that studios don't want to be made and that nobody will watch. And I'm like, wait, so you're making like full-length movies like just for yourself and your friends?
For your dog?
It's exactly what he's doing.
Let's be honest. Well, it's for him and Dave. It's for him and Filoni. Him and Filoni. They just get together. He's
inviting Spielberg over for some popcorn. They're still buddies, like, yeah, I want to see those. Maybe those will be released like in 50 years or whatever. But so a lot is going on all over the place, different things, lots of speculation, and it's fun. Let us know what you are speculating may happen. Maybe there's a partnership with someone else on one of the other many brands that Disney owns, or owns a part of. That's the other thing that's interesting. Disney only owns 80% of ESPN. Hearst Media owns 20%. So already they don't have full ownership over ESPN and a lot of, these other properties that we think are just hold and hold.
Well, that's it for the Disney news this week. We had told you that we were going to release what our plans are now that we were headed into our final movie to review from 1988 to 2005. That's our last one this week. But we're going to make you wait a little bit longer. Eddie threw it out there. He's like, come on, man. We got to have one more collaborative, let's literally revisit all these films with one more episode. So you're going to have to check in next week to find out what we're going to be doing after this challenge is completed. But today we are going to review the final film from 2005, the last one that actually came out after our childhood because we were adults by then and in college. But the last film for our movies is...
For 2005.
2005, it is The Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Cue the Disney sound effect.
Okay, the IMDb description for Chronicles of Narnia, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe is this. 4 kids travel through a wardrobe to the land of Narnia and learn of their destiny to free it with the guidance of a mystical lion. That was solid. I'm good with that. Eddie, what was your, before you came to watch this again, what was your feelings? Like, what did it take you back to that time? Like, were you excited to watch this? Is this our everyday watch for you?
So as I think a middle schooler, I really got into the Chronicles of Narnia and reading through them. And so I was introduced to the Chronicles of Narnia before any of Tolkien. So, and Lewis, just kind of was there, was present. Mm-hmm. And so I, of course, I loved those books and had a great admiration for them. So when the movie was announced, set to come out and everything like that, and I was anticipating it, one of my biggest things was I want to read this book again before the movie hits. And so it came out like the Friday night at the end of finals week, my first semester of college. It came out that Friday night, the end of the week. And so I finished my finals like that. I can't even remember, like that day, the day before. I woke up the morning that the movie was to come out. And at Moody, they had what we call the fireplace room. It was like a quiet zone to be able to like go and study. No, you weren't allowed to like talk in there, hang out. I sat down with the book and I read it all in one sitting.
That sounds about right for you.
Cover to cover, didn't move. I think I had a bottle of water. And I just, boom, detoxed from the first semester, the craziness of learning what college is really going to be, and then read it all. And then went that night and read it. I went that night and watched the movie. So I read the book, watched the movie all in one day. So I always have that memory, like very much come forward and present anytime I've rewatched it or, that comes up and all of that. And I wouldn't say that this is like a go-to rewatch for me. Like I don't know how many times that I have gone back and rewatched it since then, but I can maybe count them in, less than a handful of times.
This was the first.
What do you remember about going and seeing this?
Weirdly, this is the first movie that I watched on Blu-ray. I'm pretty sure
on Blu-ray.
This was us watching it together on the HD. It wasn't 4K at the time, but the HD TV at the church. They had that like really nice TV, the plasma TV,
Mm-hmm.
I believe it was,
Mm-hmm.
in that side room. And we got a Blu-ray player and we watched this in there because they had just put it in, just all crazy. So that's the memory that I have of it. That would have been the summer after probably the movie actually came out. I remember, and I've seen this movie several times, but that was the memory that came to my mind, as well as for me, it was my mom reading the Chronicles of Narnia stories to us over and over again. And we were more familiar with The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, probably because of like the older BBC versions of it. And there's other versions of the stories that are out there.
You and I together where we did a reader's theater or something for an academic meet out of Lion, the Witch, and Wardrobe?
That too. We did that whole scene in the Badger's home, in the Beaver's home. Yep. We did. We were in some of our acting stuff together.
I was Mr. Beaver.
That is great. Do you remember all the lines? Do you remember all the things? No, shaking your head. No.
But that was a minute ago.
Honestly, the book that I remember the most, because the other story we kind of knew fairly well of the different structure and stories of it, but the first book that we read after that was the first book that's in the whole story. That is escaping my brain right now as I'm trying to remember any of the stories. But the pools, it had all the little pools, and it's the magician's nephew. Sorry, it took me a second. The magician's nephew, and I was like, that.
I'm going to push back on you. You committed a grave error that I must correct.
It's not the first released, but it's in the chronological order, and in the way they sell them. When you have book 1, 2, it's not the first written. I know that, Eddie. Calm down.
I Google once or twice a year trying to find off of eBay or whatever, like a published set that has them in
release order.
But everybody's doing chronological order. And it drives me nuts.
It makes you mad.
This is a soapbox for me. Like, come on, publisher. Number them the way he wrote them.
So the Magician's Nephew, that was the book that really I remember. I have visceral memories of it because it was such an imaginative story. I had never heard anything like that before. The little pools that they're kind of jumping through and stuff. The fact that it all predates it was my first idea of what a prequel is. I loved, or I guess it wasn't a prequel because it's not 3 of them, but prelude to the what would then happen. Like that whole thing just like kind of blew my mind. And so that was the movie I was always hoping they would eventually make. But after they finished 3 of these and finished the last one in 2010, that Disney just was done with it and they were ready to move on. So we didn't get to ever see The Magician's Nephew out of order. So, but whatever.
Yeah. So this was an interesting set, right? So you had, Disney did Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and then they did Prince Caspian. The rights were held by Walden Media, not by Disney. They were held by Walden Media. Disney was just a producing partner and distributor in all of these. So Walden Media was the one that the Lewis estate actually gave the rights to. In preparation for Voyage of the Dawn Treader, there were budget disputes between Disney and Walden Media, and Disney backed out. So Disney didn't actually have anything to do with the Voyage of the Dawn Treader.
Wow.
That was done by Fox Studios. Fox Studios was the financier and distributor there, which, come to find out, Disney just went ahead and bought anyway. And now Disney has the rights to all 3 films. I also found out that in 2013, it's about 10 years ago, there was The Silver Chair was in development, that they were going to produce a film, and Joe Johnston was the guy who was going to direct it. Our guy, Joe Johnston from Honey, I Shrunk the Kids and The Rocketeer.
Full circle, guys.
I mean, yeah, he's a great director. So I would have loved to seen that, but nobody knows what happened. It just got stuck in, development purgatory. And then just a few months ago, we heard the announcement that the Lewis estate has entered into an agreement with Netflix to
Wow.
create a series. It's either a series or a series of films. That's not like super clear. And did you hear who they got to be like the writer director of these?
Ooh, I'm dying to know, Eddie.
You didn't hear this.
No.
I was saying, okay, Greta Gerwig.
Wow, off of Barbie, coming off Barbie to go straight into the world of Narnia. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. I have no idea what to think of that. I don't know if it's a good thing or not. I just don't know.
We shall see. Interesting. Well, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It's another large property with worlds and imagination and all kinds of intrigue. Like, it makes sense that they would then re-release the rights. I mean, if Lord of the Rings and the Tolkien, if that can come back around, and if Harry Potter, which is getting another round made of a TV show, of course Narnia. It's one of the three. Might as well.
The Harry Potter one still blows my mind. I
it hurts a little bit.
It hurts a lot.
It's too soon.
I don't think I'm outright antagonistic against a remake here. And I think this might be a good segue into this. I think this film is lovely and overall well done.
Lovely is a great word for it. Bless its heart. It's a beautiful. It's plucky. It's got charm. It looks nice. It's cinematically like visual.
Yeah. They, I think
the wrapping's good. The wrapping's good.
Yeah. They do the CGI. I thought was actually pretty decent. It was pretty good for talking animals and everything, especially thinking back to that time.
For the time, yeah,
yeah, really, really good. Like it's better than the dogs and the wolves and all that are better than like what was that? The Call of the Wild with Harrison Ford was like,
yeah, that was pretty bad.
So unreal. And that was a recent film. So yeah, let me just start with this. I feel like they leaned too heavy in that these being children's novels. I think they just at every turn brightened it and dulled it. Like let's just turn up the color and let's sand off those edges just a little bit. Like that. Is my description making any sense on all of that? Like I was trying to figure out what is driving me nuts here, and that's all I can think about is like, because okay, let me dive right into something I thought was really good. Aslan's sacrifice at the stone table, I actually think is the best part of this movie. It's a moving part of the story, but I thought,
and it should be the most moving part of the film. It's the crucible of the entire film, the moment everybody remembers.
But I feel like they did it justice. I felt like they did it well. They didn't cheapen it. Like just the whole environment around that was really, really well done. But when you get to like Aslan's encampment, it feels like a Renaissance fair. Right?
That's so good. So you're going to be shocked when I tell you this, Eddie. You're just going to be floored at how I experienced this film. I fell asleep.
No!
It was, I could not keep my eyes open for this. And this was in the middle of the afternoon on a Saturday. This wasn't like late at night after the kids had gone to bed. I'm just trying to watch the film to review it. And I am falling asleep because what you said about sanding off the edges, there was I never felt real peril in this film.
Right.
And we've seen it before, so that obviously colors the experience anyways, but I felt no peril. There was never any real danger that I felt throughout all of this. I actually kind of felt bad for Tilda Swinton because she was way better than everybody else in this entire thing.
Yes.
And it kind of hurt. Like, it's not that it hurt her performance because she was on point for this character for playing the White Witch. Like I almost felt bad because it was like she was so in it. She committed every last ounce of her being to this character, and it was just everybody else is dropping the ball. It's like an NFL player that, like, the quarterback is so good and they have no receivers, no offensive line, no anything around them to support them. And that's where I felt so sad. It was very cinematic, like the visuals and a majority of the visual effects even held par, but like just acting wise and even just the way that they laid this thing out, I was just not, I felt no sense. Like you said, like they made this for kids and they didn't want to spook them too much. So, and it's also, when you compare that to everything else that was coming out at that time, coming off of Lord of the Rings, coming off in the middle of Harry Potter, like you gotta come to bat. You gotta really go for it. And they just made this way too kiddie, way too kid friendly, way too much like a Disney Channel like storyline film. Let's keep it nice and safe. And I think that's why it's a forgettable film from that time and period, because there's no way it's going to hold up against these other films that came out. No way.
Yeah, and I appreciate you pointing out like Tilda Swinton's performance. I felt like makes the movie. Like that's the highlight. Anytime she's back in it, it's just like, okay, this is compelling. But you
and shout out to James McAvoy. James McAvoy. We get to see him in there too.
I was gonna rattle these off. I think James McAvoy does a fantastic job as Mr. Tumnus. This was one of his earlier roles. Love having Jim Broadbent as Professor Kirk, as Professor Diggory Kirk. Always was one of my favorite characters in the book, and I think he just nails it. And I can't think of anything that I've ever not liked of him, but I really enjoy it. Even like Ray Winstone as the voice of Mr. Beaver, perfectly cast, so well done. Love, love, love. I will even say, like, I think Liam Neeson as the voice of Aslan is as good as you could get it. Like I really liked him as the voice of Aslan and all of that. For me, everybody else just is so underwhelming that those people in their roles could not overcome this. And I got to specifically point this at the four kids. Like none of them are good. None of them are good. And it's crazy because you're like, well, you can't just say, well, that's child actors for you. It's like, then how did Harry Potter get it all right? Like there's no weak child actor in the Harry Potter films.
And there's some cringe. There's a few cringe moments, but at least you have film, at least you have Emma Watson. At least you have like Emma Watson for sure.
Like Susan has so many cringe moments in this movie. Peter has so many cringe moments. Like these are even the older kids. Like, at least, Lucy, like she's got a couple of moments where I'm like, okay, that's cute. I'll give it to you. You're young, but
plucky childlike wonder. Yeah.
And I will jump ahead a little bit. That's one of the reasons out of the three films that were made, I think The Voyage of the Dawn Treader is the best one of the three. Because you have better actors and you have better children actors, and you gave some time for at least two of them that appear in that one to get some experience on their belt and learn or something. I don't know, but yeah, for this it just I don't know. The first act I like. Can I say that? Like, the wartime opening is really good. The getting to the professor's house is really good. Even the first two entrances into Narnia. Okay, this is interesting. This is intriguing. Edmund meeting the White Witch on the side of the road. Like that is plucked straight out of the book. Like they just nailed it. You know, it's just so good. It's the second act where you're just going, oh, okay, this is slowing down a little bit. And then by act 3, which should be this climax and great, it's like you're trying to run through mud. Have you ever tried to run through mud? You're gonna go a lot slower than you think you're going, and you're gonna get a lot messier than you ever intended. And you just
one of my speaking of the encounter with the White Witch, one of my wife's favorite hobbies is to fight with people on the internet about that scene. When people say, how could Edmund give up his family for a dessert that tastes awful? Like, evidently this dessert is not good. And she was like, it's enchanted. It's enchanted to make you want more. He only wants more Turkish delight. It's not normal Turkish delight. And so I just love her fervor for that. So I wanted to make sure people know right now that that is enchanted Turkish delight. That was what drove him even farther to want more of it and to sell his family out a little bit too.
She's right. She is right. No, at times it's unbearable to watch because the acting is so bad. But I mean, as you go through, I always feel for the character of Edmund. And I mean, in many ways, the way he wrote it, like we should stop and identify more with Edmund than anyone.
He was the brother that everyone was annoyed by.
Yeah, but also the one that like he never made any of these decisions maliciously. You know, he took a bite of the forbidden fruit and it took him further down than he wanted to. Yeah, and he regrets it. And you see that. And I like that in the movies. They give him a couple of moments with like Mr. Tumnus and with the fox of like his empathy for people and like wanting to help people does shine through. And something that you see so clearly by the time you get to the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. That I don't know. You feel for Edmund. So I'm there with her on that one. Like, yeah, come on, people. Stop riding Edmund so much on that one. You would have done the same thing. You would have taken the candy out of the shiny box. You would have eaten it and been enchanted and been taken down further the road than what you had ever intended.
I tried to write down some quotes from this, but I didn't really have much other than the Macready when they're like, the Macready, and they run away from that lady. When they see the beaver and he's talking and it's like, he's a beaver. He shouldn't be saying anything. And then of course, there was one funny thing in the background in Mr. Tumnus's house. There's a book and the book reads, is man a myth? And it's like right behind his face when he's talking to Lucy. And so I don't know what set designer put that on there, but I loved that little touch. But those were a couple of the lines and stuff that I liked.
I believe it was, it's all Weta Workshop. Like they stepped off of Lord of the Rings and stepped right into this.
And that's where I think there's some set design things that really are beautiful, and some of the creatures that they created really are really powerful. But when you shave off the story and you make it all nice and clean and family friendly, that's where you start it actually does lose its edge and lose its importance.
Yeah. This is one of those things where I just, I don't know. There are some stories that will always live better in your imagination. And I don't know if I want other films of this. Like it just works so well in your imagination as you read it.
You don't want it, but you're going to get it.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's what's interesting is you see other stories of a similar kind, like a Lord of the Rings. Like somehow those 3 films, and most Tolkien fans will go there with you and be like, yeah, like these are the best, adaptations,
That we
film
could have gotten. Yeah.
adaptations of a book as you could ever get, and that they rival, the book. The books are so unique, and just the structure is different and everything, that, a movie could never have followed that structure. But yeah, it holds up. And I would say, even for that matter, like the Harry Potter films, of course, they can't carry all the same plot lines and storylines. Like, she wrote just such a deep and rich story. But for the most part, the A and B, plots, boom, really are captured well and sent home. At least from my perspective. But these, I don't know if the Chronicles of Narnia, they work so well as literature and in imagination, that there's a part of it where I'm like, a talking beaver in my head is so much cooler than seeing a video of it. Does that make sense?
The Chronic what?
Of
The Chronic
Narnia?
what? Coals of Narnia. You don't remember that?
Yeah,
The
no,
Chronic what? Coals of Narnia. That's what I remember about this. And that speaks to the time. The time that this came out was when YouTube and online videos were going like crazy too. So I think that's why this also got drowned out as well, because we had more to watch. The Chronic what? Coals of from SNL, Lonely Island. Shout out to them, because
This was directed
amazing.
by Andrew Adamson. Do you remember what his 2 prior films were before he went off to do this?
No, what were they?
Shrek and Shrek 2.
So this should have been much better. This should have been better.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because Disney wasn't the full ones running with it, and we had in Walden intermediaries or whatever, but should have done better.
Yeah. Do you know who they approached first?
No.
Do you just want to cringe a little bit further?
Yes.
Guillermo del Toro.
Oh, I can only imagine what this would have been if he would have touched this.
Yeah. And he had already committed to do Pan's Labyrinth, so he said no.
Hey, this is great. He said no to this after being approached by it. He also said no to the Hobbit movies after getting in the middle of those as well.
After being in pre-production with it for a year and a half, and then the studio's taking it away from him. Twice we've been taken away from Guillermo having some epic literature to.
Yeah. And we got Pacific Rim instead.
I love Pacific Rim. That is guilty pleasure movie there for me. I own it on Blu-ray.
Of course you do, Eddie. It makes sense. End of the world. Is it set in Chicago though? That's the real question.
No, it's not. It's not at all. So this is a hard one to rate.
It's not for me.
Oh, really? Okay.
Through talking about it more and more and more, it's pretty solidly for me. I know what mine is. Well, my rating is going to be for it.
I'm going to let you go first. I'm circling.
I'm going to be pretty brutal because I fell asleep and it was not worth watching. Again, I have no intentions of really watching it, but if it's on, hey, kids can watch it. And I'm going to give it a 1.5.
Oof.
The half is for the visuals and for Tilda Swinton doing her most Tilda Swinton thing. That's what I'm going to give it a 1.5. It's not turn it off immediately, but it is not, I'm not going to pay attention.
Random side note. It was good to see her with hair again. After not for quite some time. I was circling around 2, just slightly there above, but I think for me it's Tilda and Liam Neeson.
There you go.
And
giving him another.
James
they
McAvoy
each get their own little half. They each get their own half of a rating.
But I'm there with you. Very, very sad and disappointed. And it's hard. It's mixed because these are some of my favorite books. But and I'm like eagerly anticipating the day to like begin reading these with my own kids, and there was for like a brief second where I thought like, oh, is this a movie I can turn on with them? And I thought, no, I don't want to spoil these stories for them with this. No, I'm not going to do that. So
my wife has already read them all with my son. So he had already kind of knew the stories a little bit. Well, and with that, okay. And with that, your life has been forever changed by another episode of Honey, We Made a Disney Podcast.
Be sure to subscribe wherever you listen to your other favorite podcast. And while you're there, please, pretty please, give us a 5-star review and share this episode with your best friend.
You can also check us out at honeywemade.com, where you can see our reviews of all the Disney movies from 1988 to 2005, ending with this one. And please tune in next week to find out we're going to wrap up this whole thing, share our favorite moments. We got some other special things planned. And
life then we're lessons learned.
Life lessons. And we're also going to reveal what the next series of Disney content that we are going to be moving on to next.
What will it be? Thank you for listening. And remember, Aslan is on the move.